You've got to remember, that when we do the audition shows, as an example, they cut out 99% of the times when I'm really nice.
What happens when the man who created global superstars feels like a ghost in his own life? Simon Cowell built an empire on raw talent and ruthless honesty. He turned unknowns into icons, earned hundreds of millions, and redefined television. But behind the sharp suits and sharper critiques was a man quietly breaking. A broken back, a public betrayal, the loss of a son he never had. Simon Cowell, once a mailroom nobody invisible to the stars he served, rose to become a television titan whose judgment could make or break global careers. With eyes that could spot raw talent in the roughest of voices and a voice sharp enough to cut through delusion, Cowell defined modern reality TV through shows like American Idol, The X Factor, and Got Talent. He transformed ordinary individuals into international sensations, amassed immense wealth, owning luxury mansions in Malibu, Beverly Hills, New York, and London, and collected a garage full of elite supercars. Earning as much as $100 million a year, he built a media empire rivaled by few. Yet behind the glamour existed a man battling demons, depression, loneliness, public backlash, and physical collapse. Born in 1959 in London, Simon's early life was marked by distant parents, high expectations, and emotional scarcity. He struggled academically, failed to fit in, and eventually dropped out of school. His father helped him secure a mailroom job at EMI Music, where Simon found himself on the fringes of fame, sorting mail while yearning for acknowledgement. He was humiliated, rejected, and twice returned to EMI after failed attempts to branch out. But even in failure, a fire was lit. In 1983, Simon co-founded Fanfare Records and had a minor hit with So Macho by Sanita, which gave him hope briefly. The label folded in 1989, leaving him bankrupt and back in his parents' home, where he often cried alone. Yet he pushed forward, landing a job at BMG as an A&R consultant. It was here he refined his instinct for chart-topping appeal, even if critics mocked him for backing novelty acts. By 2001, he stepped into the spotlight as a judge on Pop Idol. His brutally honest critiques, often prefaced with, "I'm not being rude," captivated audiences and sparked global franchises. American Idol launched his fame in the U.S., and by the mid-2000s, Cowell had become an entertainment powerhouse whose format would reach over 70 countries. Despite his success, controversy trailed him. He was branded harsh, manipulative, and even cruel by former contestants. But Simon justified his honesty as a form of compassion. Better a painful truth than a comforting lie. By 2010, with acts like One Direction, Leona Lewis, and Susan Boyle under his belt, Cowell had created a music empire. But behind his stoic on-screen demeanor, he was crumbling. Fame failed to fulfill him, and a scandal in 2013 shook his foundations. He was revealed to be expecting a child with Lauren Silverman, the wife of a close friend. The media erupted. He lost friends, credibility, and peace. But the birth of his son Eric in 2014 transformed him. The once work-obsessed mogul traded international flights for bedtime stories, Lego sessions, and fatherly rituals. He acknowledged his past with unflinching honesty, admitting to guilt, regret, and the profound changes Eric brought to his life. Yet pain wasn't done with him. In 2015, Cowell lost his mother, Julie Brett, the emotional anchor of his life, plunging him into a state of grief so intense he described it as utterly unmoored. He threw himself into work, but the spark was gone. That same emptiness grew when, in 2020, Cowell suffered a devastating electric bike accident at his Malibu home, breaking his back in multiple places. The recovery was agonizing and humbling, a physical and emotional reckoning that left him questioning everything, including his own mortality. A second fall in 2022 further shattered his confidence. Doctors demanded he abandon veganism to recover muscle mass, a decision that pained him ethically. Simultaneously, cosmetic surgeries designed to retain his youthful image went too far, leading to a dramatically altered appearance that sparked public ridicule. Headlines asked what happened to his face, and memes mocked him. Finally, Simon stepped back from cosmetic enhancements, choosing to age naturally. He scaled down his public appearances, reduced his roles on television, and found comfort in family time and introspection. But just as life began to stabilize, tragedy struck again. In 2024, Liam Payne, of One Direction, the group Cowell had carefully assembled and guided to superstardom, died in a tragic fall in Buenos Aires. For Simon, it was not just the loss of a former protege. It was like losing a son. The grief dredged up memories of his parents' deaths and brought him to a painful reckoning with fame's darker side. Projects were paused and he turned inward, focusing solely on his son Eric and finding solace in quiet moments. The sparkle of red carpets and headlines no longer mattered. Cowell, once known for his ferocious ambition, began revisiting old audition tapes, mourning not only Liam but the passage of time and innocence. He began to understand that fame, while a ladder to success, can be a double-edged sword that consumes as much as it gives. Cowell retreated further from the public, focusing on health, wellness, and fatherhood. Morning Pilates, strict nutrition, and quiet reflection replaced the breakneck lifestyle he once glorified. He limited his appearances to select seasons of Got Talent and channeled his energy into children's initiatives and philanthropy. His lifestyle remained lavish, multi-million-dollar homes and a fleet of luxury cars, but his heart now resided in family and purpose. Despite his $600 million fortune, Cowell shocked the world by announcing he wouldn't leave any of it to Eric, explaining that he wanted his son to understand the value of hard work. Instead, most of his wealth would be donated to charities aiding disadvantaged children, an echo of the young Simon once desperate for affirmation. Some praised the decision, others criticized it, but it underscores his desire to create not just a legacy of wealth, but of wisdom. His empire, once built on creating stars, now supported causes that foster forgotten children. Friends and colleagues noticed the change. His legendary status was cemented through wildly successful franchises such as American Idol, The X Factor, and Got Talent, which didn't just entertain but redefined global pop culture. He created an empire not from privilege but perseverance, launching the careers of global icons like One Direction, Leona Lewis, Susan Boyle, and Fifth Harmony, artists who, under his guidance, turned nervous auditions into superstardom. But while the cameras captured his rise, what they often missed was a quiet, painful, and deeply human struggle behind the scenes. Born in 1959 in Lambeth, London, and raised in the village of Elstree, Hertfordshire, Simon grew up in a house full of expectations, but short on warmth. His mother, Julie Brett, a ballet dancer and elegant socialite, was graceful but emotionally distant. His father, Eric Cowell, a property developer and music executive, was stern and principled, a man who believed in achievement but offered little emotional affirmation. Cowell once admitted, "He never told me he was proud, even when I desperately needed to hear it." Struggling academically, Simon attended Radlett Preparatory School and Dover College, but consistently failed to meet expectations. He was restless, disruptive, and disconnected, feeling like a square peg in a world of round holes. After barely scraping by with 2 GCEs, he dropped out. He drifted through odd jobs, some humiliating, others soul-crushing, until his father arranged a mailroom position at EMI Music. There, surrounded by music, stars, and opportunities that didn't yet belong to him, Simon began to absorb the industry's rhythm. Still invisible to most, he delivered coffee and sorted fan mail, yet something within him began to stir, an instinct for what worked, for what moved people. But his early attempts at success fell flat. He left EMI, returned, started small ventures, all which failed, until he co-founded Fanfare Records. A minor breakthrough came in 1986 with Sanita's So Macho, which gave him hope, but Fanfare collapsed soon after. Broke and nearly 30, he moved back in with his parents. Sleeping in the same childhood room he thought he had outgrown, he was humbled, hollowed out by dreams that refused to ignite. He cried in the bathroom after long days, thinking his life had already peaked. But buried in that despair was a quiet defiance. Simon clawed his way back into the industry, working for BMG as an A&R consultant, a role that became the training ground for his greatest weapon, an unparalleled instinct for commercial music. He signed novelty acts, theme songs for shows and wrestlers, and while critics scoffed, the public bought in. He didn't aim for critical acclaim. He aimed for connection. "People laugh at what I signed," he said, "but I wasn't trying to impress critics. I was trying to move people." Then came the defining moment. Pop Idol in 2001. When Simon stepped in front of the camera, his brutally honest judging style polarized viewers. He wasn't cruel for cruelty's sake. He was unapologetically honest in an industry plagued by sugar-coated lies. Audiences either loathed him or couldn't stop watching him. His words were sharp but often necessary, and his presence helped turn Pop Idol into a cultural phenomenon. American Idol followed, launching Cowell to U.S. stardom and turning him into a household name. At the peak of his fame, he was earning $75 million annually. His franchises exploded globally. X Factor in the UK, Got Talent worldwide, spanning over 70 countries and turning unknowns into global celebrities. Yet even as Cowell conquered the world of entertainment, he remained haunted by a kind of existential emptiness. Fame didn't fill the void, he said. Sometimes it widened it. The world saw a billionaire kingmaker, but few saw the sleepless nights, the loneliness behind limousines, or the emotional isolation he carried like a secret weight. Then came the 2013 scandal. It was revealed he was expecting a child with Lauren Silverman, the wife of his close friend Andrew Silverman. The tabloids erupted. He was branded immoral, selfish, and disloyal. Andrew filed for divorce on grounds of adultery. Friends cut ties. Simon, for the first time, found himself unable to outmaneuver a public reckoning. It was not something I'm proud of, he later admitted. But amidst the chaos, a boy named Eric was born, and he changed everything. Fatherhood softened Cowell in ways unimaginable. The man who once built stars now built Lego castles. The once jet-setting tycoon now tucked in a child each night. He reoriented his life around small joys, bath time, bedtime stories, and school pickups. For a man who had been defined by work and wealth, Eric became his anchor, his purpose. Still, guilt lingered. The scandal had left emotional debris, and Simon often revisited it in interviews, not to seek pity, but to show growth. Eric changed my life, he said. Maybe he saved it. Emergency surgery followed. He couldn't move for weeks. Relearning how to walk was slow, painful, and humbling. For a man obsessed with control, the hospital bed was a prison. I thought this might be the end, he said. A second fall in 2022 eroded his already fragile confidence. Doctors urged him to switch from a strict vegan diet to a protein-rich one to heal. The compromise broke his heart. He felt like he was betraying his values just to keep going. All this took a toll not just on his body, but his image. Years of cosmetic procedures had altered his face dramatically. By 2021, fans noticed the puffed cheeks and frozen expression. What happened to Simon Cowell's face became a common headline. He eventually admitted he had gone too far. There was a point I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. He stopped treatments, choosing instead to let time and age do their work. It marked a turning point, his withdrawal from fame. He started limiting appearances, attending only select episodes of Got Talent, and stepped away from launching new shows. The man who once chased attention now chased stillness. He found peace in being a father, not a producer. Then, in late 2024, tragedy returned. Liam Payne, one of the original One Direction members, a group Cowell had carefully assembled and nurtured, fell from a hotel balcony in Buenos Aires and died. The world mourned, but Simon was gutted. It was like losing a son, he said. The grief reopened old wounds from his parents' deaths and forced him to reckon with the darker costs of fame. One Direction had symbolized hope and youth. Liam's death shattered that illusion. Cowell withdrew again, postponing projects, declining interviews, and spending every waking moment with Eric. He rewatched old audition tapes in private, mourning not just Liam, but an era he could never get back. Friends described a man transformed, gentler, more introspective, humbled by grief and age. He began focusing on charitable initiatives, particularly those supporting disadvantaged children, a poignant reflection of the boy he once was. Remarkably, despite his $600 million fortune, Cowell publicly stated he would not leave his wealth to the son. Eric needs to earn his own success, he said. Instead, the majority of his wealth will go to charities, a legacy built on values rather than material inheritance. Some applauded the stance, others condemned it, but it revealed the depth of Cowell's desire for redemption and change. His Beverly Hills estate, once a monument to indulgence, became a sanctuary for quiet healing. His other properties, from Malibu to London, were no longer status symbols but homes for reflection. His car collection, Bugattis, Bentleys, Jaguars, sat largely unused, echoing a man who no longer needed to prove anything. He meditates, does Pilates, eats mindfully, and shows up for PDA meetings, actions that for him require more courage than scathing one-liners ever did. His evolution is not dramatic, but deliberate. He doesn't seek applause anymore. He listens for laughter around the dinner table. His legacy is not defined by the number of stars he created, but by the one he's now raising. Behind every sharp critique once delivered to a hopeful singer was a boy who never felt good enough. Now, as a man and father, he tries to ensure his son does. The Simon Cowell we see today is not the caricature of arrogance we once knew. He is a man shaped by loss, scandal, injury, reflection, and love. He's a man who has faced humiliation, grief, ridicule, and pain, yet continues to rise, not for glory but for peace. His journey is no longer about fame, but about presence. No longer about perfection, but about forgiveness. And in that quiet transformation lies a far more powerful story than any season finale could deliver. The lights never truly went out on Simon Cowell, but in their softer glow, we see a man who has finally come home, not to an estate or studio, but to himself. Simon Cowell's life was never about overnight success. It was about enduring failure, chasing perfection, and eventually discovering what really matters when applause fades. Behind the fame, scandals, and staggering fortune is a man who was broken more than once, but who kept rebuilding brick by fragile brick. Today, he isn't just a ruthless TV mogul who changed music television. He's a father, a survivor, and a man learning that legacy isn't what you leave behind, it's who you become in the process. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you hardest. And if you're fascinated by the untold truth behind the world's biggest celebrities, make sure to subscribe.